Hello and welcome to this NCFE professional development training session on feedback to feed forward. So in this session, we will be exploring feedback and feed forward strategies to support teaching and learning. So we'll be having a look at what feedback and feed forward is, strategies, activities, and then a summary. So I'd like you to just take a few moments to think about what you think feedback is. So feedback is a snapshot of the learner's performance for a task or at a specific point in time. The purpose of effective feedback is to help the learner maximize their potential, and it does this by raising their awareness to their strengths and areas that need developing. This helps to improve the quality of work and a better understanding of what they need to do in order to achieve. It identifies how well the learner has performed in relation to the assessment requirements and or the learning outcomes. So next, feed forward. I'm going to give you a few moments to think about what you understand by the term feed forward. So feed forward is to plan the next steps for progression. Feed forward supports the learner to improve by providing information to help the students move forward in their learning. When we give feed forward, it's looking ahead to the next assignment or the next piece of work rather than historic work, and it focuses on the next steps and planning for the future. It's all about offering constructive guidance on how to improve, and it can be implemented during the task rather than waiting for till the students completed the work. It is, however, useful to consider the difference when choosing, developing, and using formative assessment methods and activities. So, feedback relates to what's been achieved. The learners receive confirmation of the knowledge, skills, and the competencies which have been demonstrated, whereas feed forward focuses on the next steps, more specifically what the learner needs to do to develop and progress, and what they need to do to continue to improve and develop their skills, knowledge, and understanding moving forward. Both types are useful, um, especially if they're used to track learning and progress over time. So therefore, the purpose of effective feedback is to help the learner maximize their potential, and it does this by raising the awareness to their strengths and areas that need developing, and to help improve the quality and work and a better understanding of what they need to do in order to achieve. So an example could be you could have a learner doing a presentation, and they may keep looking away from the audience to a piece of paper. So you could say, you keep looking away, that would be feedback. However, to feed forward, you could say in your next presentation, you might try using cards with bullet points on rather than using a big piece of paper. This will help you keep more eye contact with the audience. Another example could be in written work. You could stop the learner as they're going along and suggest how they could um, improve it as they're actually doing it in live time. However, both feedback and feed forward are both important. So looking at some of the benefits of feeding forward. So feed forward is often not taken as personally as feeding back. It reinforces the possibility of change. Feed Forward focuses on a positive future, not a failed past. It gives ideas, suggestions on how the learner can be even more successful. And it's seen as positive because it focuses on solutions and not problems. So next we're going to look at how feedback can be effective. So effective feedback should focus on what's being learned, the learning intention, clearly explain how students should go about it, so the success criteria. Um, it should be timely and ongoing, so as the learners are doing it as part of the marking process and progress of work. Provide information on how and why the student has or has not met the criteria, and provide strategies to help the students improve. So feedback can come from a range of sources and can either be written or spoken. So sources of feedback include teacher, peer, self, and automated. Methods of feedback include verbal, so this can be ongoing during the lesson time. It can also be built around the curriculum to allow for one-to-ones and time to act on feedback. Written feedback, that can be returned to at a later date, so that can be written in the books, and it should be planned for feedback to be acted upon as well, in order to make the most progression. So next, some feedback strategies. So you've got types of feedback. So you've got constructive feedback. So constructive feedback is based around what the learners can improve, and this is the most useful type of feedback. You've also got positive feedback, so that's what the learner has done well. Positive feedback is great for boosting confidence, but it's only focusing on the positives without highlighting the areas for improvement, and that could lead to learners becoming complacent. And then you've got negative, and that's just highlighting the things that are wrong or comments on what's not good in their work. This type of feedback is not useful at all. And just a top tip, if you cannot find any successes in a learner's work and they do not show any understanding, don't give feedback, reteach instead. So how to give effective feedback. So know the task requirements so you can give sensible, specific feedback linked to the improvement criteria. Constructive feedback is the best. If you can identify any missing criteria, you may help someone improve their work. Make it specific. So the more specific the feedback provided, the easier it is to understand and improve. So we've got two types of feedback. We've got descriptive and evaluative. Evaluative is the judgment by the teacher. However, descriptive can be broken down into three areas. So Clark in 2003 suggested these three types of areas and prompts for providing feedback. They are reminder prompts, scaffold prompts, and example prompts. The reminder prompt reminds the learner of the objective and goal. The scaffold prompt prompts the learner to think about what they are learning throughout the process and assists them on reflecting on what they have learned. And the example prompt gives the learner a similar scenario, solution, or method. So descriptive feedback focuses on those learning outcomes and making a specific reference to the learner's achievement. Whereas evaluative feedback involves a judgment by the teacher. So next we're going to have a look at this activity. So what I would like you to do is I'd like you to match up the prompt with the example on the screen. You may wish to pause the recording if you're listening to the recorded version. So for example, if you think number 1 is a reminder prompt, you would write 1B. I'll give you a few moments to have a look at those three. So let's have a look at the answers. So we've got 1, that would be reminder prompt. Description 2 would be a scaffolded prompt. And number 3 would be A, an example prompt. So next, moving on to feed forward strategies. So here we have some live marking and feedback ideas. So as learners are working, give feed forward on the work being produced in live time. Feed forward can be verbal. If your policy requires written responses, make brief comments or highlight to reinforce the verbal feed forward. Learners get instant feed forward and teachers' workload is massively reduced. Another useful tool to help with feeding forward are checklists. So you can use these to highlight areas the learners need to be working or focusing on. So checklists can allow the learners to master processes. They can be used to remind what a great piece of work looks like, assess progress swiftly, identifying missteps immediately, and then critical self and peer assessment. So making the most of feedback and feed forward. So another way to help with both feedback and feed forward is the a miss checklist. So A stands for the achievement and the feedback. I is the improvement. If you can do it again, what would make it better? M is the moving forward. So learning from the feedback and applying from the improvements. S is the skill shown. And the final S, the most important, is for the student action. So this is set by the student as to what they are going to do based on the feedback and feed forward. And this is probably what is the most important out of all of those is the learner taking ownership for their own learning. So next I'm going to share a Jamboard with you that was done in the live session. So this was top tips for feedback and feed forward. And I will show you the Jamboard now. So these are some of the top tips that were done in the live session that the attendees put down for their top tips and for feedback and feed forward. I'll give you a few moments to have a look at this. So let's have a knowledge check and see what we can recall. So I'm going to give you a few moments, and what I'd like you to do is to match the statement to the description. So you've got statement, sources of feedback, ways you can give feedback, feedback strategies, and types of feedback. And I'd like you to choose from A, B, C, and D for each one. You may wish to pause the recording. So I'll share the answers to this with you. So source of feedback would be teacher, peer, self, and automated. Ways you can give feedback, written and verbal. Feedback strategies. So that could be things such as feedback grids, marking codes, even better if, and drag ratings. And then types of feedback, you've got positive, negative, and constructive. Next, let's see what we can record for feed forward. And again, you may wish to pause the recording. So we have benefits of feeding forward, examples of feeding forward, feed forward methods, and focus of feed forward. And you've got the choice from those A, B, C, D at the bottom of the screen. So let's have a look at the answers for this. So for benefits of feeding forward, you get instant solutions. Example of feeding forward would be marking in live time. A feed forward method would be a checklist, and focus of feed forward would be the next steps. So feed forward is always about those next steps. So this brings us to the summary. So learners should know where they are, where they need to go, and how best to get there. Teachers could use both feedback and feed forward to maximize students' success. And just a final thought, one of the most useful words in any teacher's vocabulary is yet. When a student says, I can't do it, the teacher needs to respond with, you can't do it yet. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the session and found it useful. Thank you.